All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I am here with Melissa. And Melissa, I didn't even ask you, and I think I would probably pronounce it right, but how do you pronounce your last name?
Well, let's see if you can get it right.
I think it's Krivachek. Is that right?
Krivachek.
Krivachek. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit off. Do you get that a lot?
Every day.
Every day.
Okay. Every day.
Then I don't have to feel bad.
Nope.
So now I will always remember that it's Melissa Krivachek. Krivachek is how you pronounce Krivachek. Okay. And so I want to start our conversation today by just giving a shout out to Matthias Miller, because Matthias was the one that connected you and I, and Matthias has become a close friend of mine. I absolutely love Matthias and the way he shows up, and he's got a really valuable skill set that he has.
Yeah, he does.
For serving the right people, yes. And when he says, Kev, you should talk with Melissa about doing an interview for the podcast, I'm like, that carries so much weight for me. I'm just like, well, if you think I should talk with Melissa Matthias, I'm in, and I'm going to have that conversation.
We're all in.
So you and I spoke about a week or so ago, and then we just totally clicked. And I gotta say, I friend requested you on Facebook, and I've been watching your Facebook posts, and even our conversation last week where you were sharing, how you do what you do, and you've been doing it for 18 years. I've just been like, I've been kind of fascinated, and I've been looking forward to this conversation to just even learn more. And so what I'd like to do to start off is just turn it over to you, so we can set a little bit of context here and stuff, because I want to give the listeners a really good idea of who you are, what you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the work you do and the impact you're making in the world, and even give us some backstory into how you got here, how you got into this line of work.
Yeah, so I'm Melissa. Everybody knows me by that, not my last name, because it's too complicated, much like your bottom line. So I have been analyzing businesses for 18 years. I am super passionate to wake up and dig into businesses all day, every day. On average, I talk to 10 business owners a day, over 300 a month.
Wow.
So it's not a specific industry, because I am completely industry agnostic, but I love blue collar. So I'm a huge fan of roofing, siding, windows, doors, landscaping, literally anything blue collar that you can think of.
Okay.
E-com is a little bit more difficult to analyze, evaluate, and put a price tag on. So my whole process is that I am not a broker, I'm not a CPA, I'm not an attorney, I'm not any of the things that you would think of when you think of the person that buys or sells businesses for a living. So basically, I am able to do that because I grew up in a very small town in Iowa, and I learned hard work, really good values, the power of relationships like Kevin and I have, and just really just connecting with people and understanding the dynamics of the business. And so I learned from YouTube, not that I would suggest people do that, because this is probably where you're seeing this interview, but back in the day, 18 years ago, YouTube wasn't really a thing. So Tony Robbins, Deepak Chopra, Les Brown, they were all coming online, and I would listen and regurgitate. But then I got to experience and develop systems and scalability and operations. And eventually I built a company from 0 to 110 employees and exited for 27 million. So when you exit, obviously you have a non-compete. And so I got into some e-com stuff, and that's where I learned e-com. But at the end of the day, I am obsessed with business. So like, I will ask business owners, like, what does your bottom line look like? What are your margins? What is your profitability? How many employees? 1099, W-2s, the list of questions goes on and on. But I can evaluate businesses in that regard and pretty accurate within the parameters of what the SBA or any other banker, broker, or attorney is looking for.
Wow. And you have been doing this for about 18 years now.
Yeah.
And you have a very unique proposition because, like you mentioned, you're not a broker, you're not a CPA, you're not an accountant, you're not any of these things. And so by not being a broker, you don't have to charge, or you don't charge a percentage of the sale like a broker does, which when we're talking the sale of a business, that can be a pretty substantial amount. So you do it a little bit differently. So explain how you do it, because this just completely fascinated when you shared this with me.
Yeah, so most brokers charge 9.5% on the back end. I do not. I charge a one-time flat fee up front. That includes everything. So it's really on the basis of what the company value is, and I'll be able to look at your paperwork and determine what that looks like, what the multiple will be, and all of that will have to be verified. So let me just give a quick example of this. A guy called me from a roofing company yesterday, and he's like, my numbers are this, that, and that. And now I want you to tell me what my business is worth. Can I get X million? I'm like, that's not really how this works. Because we have to verify that the data that you gave me was accurate. And he's like, it's accurate. I'm like, no. We don't go by it's accurate because it's coming out of your mouth. We go by it's accurate on the basis of documents from the IRS, documents from your accountant, documents from your employees, and a verification of a lot of other formalities before we can get to the price. And then after we can get to the price, we'll get to the multiple. So, people want to jump to what is my business worth, but there's a lot of stuff that happens in between. Where am I at currently in my financials? How much of that am I hiding from, or am I keeping from the government? And then what does that actually do to affect the multiple? So it's a flat fee.
There. And which, am I correct in that saves the business owner a considerable amount of money when it comes to sale time?
A lot. It saves them a lot of money, but it also saves them a lot of time. So I shared this in the first conversation. One of the questions, I guess, that always gets added back is, well, what about if you don't have the motivation to sell, like someone that's getting paid a percentage? And the reality is, like, I don't really want to take you on as a client if your intention is to worry about what percentage I'm getting paid because it's going to take X amount of months to sell a business. I don't know how long it's going to take to sell a business, but I can promise you I have the same drive, passion, and motivation that the broker has, if not higher, because I got paid up front. So now I have to perform, period. Like, that's the end of the story, or we're going to have tough times and a tough conversation.
Yeah. Okay. So now that we've got a little bit of context set here, we'll switch gears just a little bit. And I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. And so, Melissa, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
So I think there's two people that come to mind when it comes to this. The first is going to be my dad. And the reason that he's a part of the story is because let me reframe that. My parents, because they've been married 40 years, so we can't really say one or the other. My parents gave me a vehicle. And so because the town was like 237 people, I was like, I'm out of here. I can create a better life. But in that process, I was actually working for Walmart. And so Rick, who was a manager of mine, I went to him and I was like, I'm quitting. Like, I really can't do this. And he's like, you're not quitting. I'm going to give you a management role and I'm going to treat you how I would treat all of my other managers. You're going to be under a lot of stress though, because you're the youngest. So you're 17 and I'm giving you these roles and responsibilities. I expect you to show up for work. I expect you to be on time. I don't really care how much homework you have. And, you know, the people that are older than you are going to have a tough time with you leading. So, and he was tough. A lot of people hated him. I absolutely loved him because I knew that this would get me very far. But I mean, I didn't really like waking up at 5 in the morning and going to bed at like midnight. But the reality is, like, I knew that that was going to take me somewhere. So I was all about it. So, the combination of having really great mentorship and having someone say, like, you're not going to quit, you're not going to like walk away when times get tough, you're not going to just, you know, look at other people as if they're more valuable than you or as if they're older or wiser than you, but you can challenge that, and still be a leader in your own capacity and give direction. That was something that was very strong for me. And so, having that allowed me to actually build the tiny little Walmarts into super centers. So Rick and I started driving around, building out these Walmart super centers. And
Wow.
yeah, so eventually, I left the company. He stayed, and he's still with the company today. I don't even know how many years ago that would have been, but a long time, probably a little bit over 25 now, because he was with the
Okay.
company before. So, I got out of the small town. I got out of the small town mentality. I got to work for a huge conglomerate at a very young age. I got to do leadership at a very young age, and I learned I need to work for myself over here. So that's what I did, and I did not do that without a lot of failure and without a lot of you know, running the framework in my mind of remember what Rick said, remember that you are good enough and you're strong enough, and all these things. Meanwhile, I'm in my parents' house, and my dad is like, "You're not gonna do it. Go get a job." Blah blah blah. And I'm like, "Fuck you! I am doing this, and I don't care if you're a failed entrepreneur. I am absolutely gonna do it." So I got the keys to the car. That's all I need, right? So, funny story, I actually get 36 speeding tickets, end up in jail, and that's really where I wrote my business plan. And
Wow.
so, failure is inevitable, but you got to take the people and the resources you were given and become resourceful.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how long did you and Rick work together in building out these Walmart supercenters?
I think we were together 3 years.
About 3 years.
Yeah,
Did you
something
travel a
like this.
lot during that time too?
Mhm.
I take it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we traveled a lot. So I was young, and he's originally from the Philippines, and he left his wife and 3 kids in one state, and he was in a completely different state. So he's also completely different, like away from his family, you know, trying to put them as, you know, the reason why he's working. But at the end of the day, like, it's really hard to be away from your family.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Yeah. So, if you look back at this relationship with Rick and you know, look at what has transpired in your life since then, and I mean, I'm sure you could come up with a lot of examples. I just want to challenge you to come up with one, and I would think that just one would just is going to pop right to the top of mind for you when I ask you the question. But if you look at, you know, where look at an example, what is an example where you personally you got to make a really huge substantial impact, and you know, hands down, that would have never happened if not for the relationship and the experience that you and Rick had.
I mean, there's a lot, but this is my probably the one thing that comes to mind that was impactful for, I think, probably both of us. So
Okay.
I got fired from Walmart, obviously, because I lost my license, so I couldn't get there, blah, 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 whatever. And I could not be rehired by Walmart ever again. But because of Rick, I actually got to come back as the consultant. and
Wow.
hype up the team and then drive them forward and do the Walmart cheer and all that stuff. But I got to go to one of his stores in California, and like he didn't know that I was coming. So I showed up completely unannounced. I came and I was like, thank you for everything that you've done in my life. I'm super appreciative of our relationship. Even outside of these stores, and just like the impact that you've had in my life. And then as a result of that, he was like, hey, do you want to come do this training for my team? And I was like, fuck yes, I do. Like, this is awesome, because at the end, like, I couldn't get what I wanted in terms of a career there, but I could get what I wanted in terms of an impact left on the people that might not ever get the chance to do what I do, meaning that they'll never make the money that I make or be able to, you know, travel like I traveled or invest like I've invested. But those people, regardless, if you're at Walmart, McDonald's, or any other low-paying job that you might hold on to for reasons of having a family or something else that's important to you, like benefits, just know that like you can still make an impact. So, you know, he's had the same job for forever, but it doesn't mean that he's any less impactful than you and I.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. I mean, you know, I it's very because you never know who we're really talking to, who they know. We don't know any of that. And so,
Yeah.
you know, whether we are talking, you know, I mean, I've been to, over the years, I've been in lots of spaces where there's a lot of successful entrepreneurs. But by the same exact token, I have made such amazing connections with people where I was at a restaurant and it was a server who was bringing us our meal and stuff too. And you know, this whole thing of just treating people, treating others the way that we, you know, the golden rule, treat others the way that we would like to be treated ourselves. There, I mean, it seems so simple, but yet if we really value relationships, that's how we're going to just treat people, because all relationships matter.
Yeah,
And
100%.
when we just show up and we understand that and we just treat people according, you know, what I found is that what we end up really giving people is this gift that they so seldom get, which is this gift of just feeling seen, heard, and understood. And
That's
when,
enough oftentimes.
oh, it's totally enough, you know. And so, and talk about making an impact. You give somebody the gift of feeling seen, heard, and understand. All we got to do, I mean, I am this naturally curious guy. I've been this way all my life. Sometimes it irks my wife because I ask so many questions. But when it comes to having conversations with entrepreneurs, you know, it's that's part of like what Dan Sullivan, a strategic coach, would call a unique ability. That's part of my unique ability, because I just genuinely love talking with entrepreneurs. I love talking with them about what they do, how they do it, what challenges they're dealing with, what opportunities they see. And I just automatically default to, well, who do I know that might be able to help them with any of this? And that's how I start making connections. But it's just the act of answering or asking questions, and then just because I'm genuinely curious to know, and then I start asking more questions based on what they share, and you give people the gift of feeling seen, heard, and understood, and that is what so many people just want. They just want meaningful connection, you know.
But that alone can do wonders to your business. Like,
Totally.
so for example, like yesterday, I had sent off a text that just said, like, hey, I really wanted you to know that even though I know that you're struggling and a lot of people in your world don't, like, I see you working, you know, 120 hours a week. I see you putting in an effort and not getting paid. I see you doing all these things. Know that I'm proud of you for doing those things. And the gentleman that I sent it to, he's like, you're just a fucking awesome human being. And you always try to be my favorite human. I'm like, I'm honestly not trying to be your favorite human. I'm just showing up for you. That's the difference between, I guess, me and everybody else. I don't know. But likewise, like a gentleman called me, and tomorrow he wants to do tacos because he knows his marriage is going into the ground on the basis of his business not performing. And he was a little bit hesitant to ask, obviously, because he knows my status is substantially higher than his. And I was like, yeah, let's do tacos. Like hot tacos right up the road. Let's go. I don't expect to save his marriage. If that happens, that's awesome. That's not my intention. My intention is to treat him like I would treat anybody. I would treat him to dinner, have a conversation, and see what comes of that. The only person saving his business and his marriage is him. I can be a little impact in a large world, and that's what I try to do every day. And that, so I would just tell people, like, whether you're making 600 million, which is my largest deal that we've talked about, or whether you're making $6 at Walmart, it doesn't matter. I would still treat everybody the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen. Amen. Well, I'll tell you, I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation. And for, anybody that's listening to this, I went, because, we get a lot of entrepreneurs who follow this podcast.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that some of them listening right now are like, okay, Kev, I really like Melissa, and I like the way she does things, and I might just want to have a conversation with her and get to know her better. What's the easiest way for them to facilitate something like that?
Just look me up on Facebook. I mean, that's sort of my like go-to resource for all things. Like, I'm not really an emailer, but it's pretty easy to find my email or my phone number. So I a lot of times just get random texts. If you're gonna text me, that's fine, but just let me know who you are in advance, because you can't just say, hey, I need this, that, or the other thing, and expect me to know who you are. So if you can do context, that would be awesome. But I respond to everything. I respond to every email. I respond to every phone call, every text message, every Facebook message. Like, I'm very responsive. And the reason that I do that, honestly, is because if I didn't have mentors like Rick in my life, I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't be who I am, and I wouldn't have the things that I have. And so I think it's really important, no matter what level of success you achieve, that you try to impact somebody in the smallest way to ultimately create a larger impact or a larger wave in some way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we will definitely include your Facebook profile link with the show notes and stuff. We'll make that nice and easy. So any last thing you feel led to share before we call it a wrap, Melissa?
I just think, relationships, whether they're $1 million relationships or not, are invaluable and impactful. And try to make time for more of that in your life. Try to make a little less time for your cell phone and a little less time for technology, and a little more time to have a conversation has substance. Yeah, that's my recommendation.
Well, there you go. Well, Melissa, once again, thanks so much for taking the time to have this conversation. Really appreciate you, and I'm excited to get this out there and share it with others. So thanks again.
You're welcome. Take care.